Hey everyone, sorry about that. It kind of kicked in a little weird here. Uh Thank you very much for joining me yet on another live episode of the Rocky Mountain Cigar Show here at the Smokin' Studios. And guys, I have such we have such a great show for you guys tonight. Okay, first off, this is somebody that I can't believe we were able to get him on. And you know the funny thing about it is I can't believe I was able to get him on. He's over there going, well, yeah, I said yes when you asked me. It's not like I had to do he's just that type of a guy. So for me, when I reached out to Moe Cason and talked to him about, told him what we wanted to do, told him about red meat lovers, which he's never had before, until Steve Saka was so incredible. Thank you so much, Steve, for specifically stepping up and partnering with me on this episode and allowing Mo to really experience what's the perfect cigar for a guy like Mo Cason, right? Is the red meat lover cigar. So we couldn't have asked for a better show for you guys tonight. Thank you so much to everybody watching. Please share this episode. If you are not yet, please follow me on Facebook, Rumble, subscribe to me on YouTube, as all those little things kind of help and absolutely just kind of make for an all-around better show. So thank you to everybody that's watching tonight. Let's go. Guys, I'm not going to be honest with you. So I've been talking with Mo for like 30 minutes right before the show. I'm actually fucking nervous right now. Like I don't even know why. Like Mo and I have been like talking like we've been friends for decades. And I'm actually nervous now that we're live, but don't let him know, just kind of a little bit between us. So we're gonna go ahead and bring in the man of the hour. Mo, how you
What's
doing,
up?
brother?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Dude, I am doing so good. I'm just so excited to have you on. And when I've told people that you were coming out, they're like, how the hell did you even reach out to him? And I don't want to give everybody, the scoop on that, but eh, my gosh, man, like, thank you so much. When I talked to you about it, the first thing you said was, sure, this Thursday. And I was like, no, I'm looking for a beginning of springtime, maybe coming into this nice weather. And you're like, oh, okay. So like you were ready to move forward and actually jump on the show a few days after I called. And I loved that, Mo. So thank you so much. But for everybody that doesn't know who Mo is, Mo, please do us all the honor and in favor of introducing yourself, and we'll kick it off.
Okay, yeah, I'm Moe Cason. I'm from Des Moines, Iowa. I'm a barbecue man, pit master. I have been very fortunate to be able to take this barbecue passion that I love and grow it into a business. And it's taken me all over the world, man, and all over the states, and it's just been a blessing, man. The opportunities that's happened for me, man, I'm just so thankful and so humble. And it's the barbecue family hashtag. You know what I mean? I've been able to meet so many cool people in this industry throughout the years. You know, I started in 2006 doing competitions, and it's taken me all over, man.
All over, hosting two very, very highly viewed, highly rated shows inside the barbecue world. That's my first introduction to you, and shit, I think that's definitely probably 90% of the world's introduction to Big Mo was the Pitmasters, and so let's kind of, instead of starting there, what I'd like to do is kind of back up, but before we do, we're gonna jump into the "What Are You Smoking Tonight" segment, sponsored by again Steve Sack over at Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. So Mo, what are you smoking tonight, and what size are you smoking?
Well, it's a red meat
Oh,
lover.
hold on. All right, there we go. Go ahead.
It's a red meat. It's a red meat lover. It's a box of cigars that I got from you. It's absolutely delicious. I didn't know how I was gonna like them because I'm very regimented. I've had a lot of cigars in my day, and I've kind of gravitated to like certain flavors.
Mm-hmm.
But I gotta say, this red meat lover's cigar here is a great smoke, and I'm not just saying that because I'm on the show. Because I'm a person. If I don't like a cigar, I'll just tell you I don't like it. And I really like that cigar. That's a cigar. It's not harsh. It's mild, but it's also got full flavor. It would be almost like a better flavor Olivia, in my opinion.
Okay, better flavored Oliva. Yeah, nice. Okay, okay.
And I just think that it's a really good cigar. It's something that you can smoke all day. You can get on the lawnmower and go and cut the grass, or you can be at a barbecue cook-off and smoke, and it's not so spicy or so heavy that's gonna just gas you out, and then you're down after a cigar. I mean, I'm getting ready to light another one up after this. That's because it's that tasty.
Yeah, one of the things, by the way, everybody, I'm smoking the Red Meat Lovers beef stick. So this is actually an interesting version of a cigar, Mo. This is a flat top and flat bottom, like the beef sticks. So there's no rounded cap over the top. It's flat on the top and bottom. So it's a closed foot, but it's a smooth cap on the bottom for a closed foot. It's just a little bit different makeup as it's a different size. I agree with you. Red Meat Lovers is a cigar that's made to be smoked in a very nice weather day, all the way to standing right next to the smoker where it's hot as hell, and you're not gonna get overpowered by it. You're not gonna get a queasiness to it. And somebody like yourself that stands in a hot area most of the time when you're working, that definitely you feel the heavier cigars probably a lot more, because for anybody that's ever visited Moe's page, his entry level photo is him smoking a cigar. So Mo is a cigar guy through and through when it comes to, especially probably anything outdoor activity. You're smoking meat, you're probably smoking a cigar, right?
Exactly. I started smoking cigars in my late teens, right before I went in the Navy, and I had a captain of my first ship, which I was on the USS Missouri battleship, and I remember him, Captain J.J. Trineski. He's passed now, but he always had a cigar on him. When he was outside, he was smoking a stick. And he was such a cool captain, man. He was so cool, and he was so good to us. The sailors that worked underneath him, man, on the Missouri, he was just good people, and left a great positive impression on me. And I started taking up cigaring and smoking cigars more and more and more as I was in the Navy. And then as I got out of the Navy, I just started smoking cigars again. So I started out, and I used to smoke all the other, I would say, like, not say lower brand, but just getting into the cigar game. You don't
Sure.
really know until you try them, until you taste
Correct.
them, and it's been a great journey. Now I have, probably 4 or 5 cigars that are like my go tos that I go to, and I'm going to add this Red Meat Lovers. No joke. That's going to be added to my smokes that I smoke on the regular. I'm really impressed with that stick, and I've had cigars where I take 1 or 2 puffs. I'm like, no, I get.
Well, when I was talking to Steve about partnering up on this specific episode for Red Meat Lovers, because obviously that's just one line of his entire brand, and he knew exactly who you were. I was like, yeah, I'm looking at Moe. He goes, the smoking guy, like the meat smoking guy. No shit. Really? Yes, absolutely. I want to be part of that. I want him to try this cigar. So I love that you love it. It's a
Oh, it is
really great balanced, smoothly driven cigar.
very balanced.
And it is a really good one. And and I sent you some additional of his. I would strongly recommend going through several of Dunbarton's lines, because if you definitely like this, a lot of his other stuff you'll like. But I also wanted to just to say, as one bald man to another, I see you're wearing that hat. Is that not the absolute most comfortable hat for a bald head I have ever experienced in my life, at least?
Well, this is probably gonna be my new hunting cap because I mean it's insulated. You can see it. It's
Yeah,
got
it's
like a
that fleece.
oh my god, it's so comfortable. I've been wearing the heck out of this thing, man. I'm in Iowa, so we've had these little cold snaps, and I put this on, man. It's super comfortable.
Now,
Super.
before everyone runs to Iowa, and before anybody asks the question, I'm just going to answer this now, because this is going to be a question I know. Mo does not have a restaurant. Mo is too busy to have a restaurant. Mo has a house that collects mail only. It barely collects Mo.
That's true.
Mo, I don't think I think I've called Mo once or twice where he's actually been in Iowa. Like he is traveling all over the place. He's doing stuff out of the country. Mo, you've lived an absolutely unbelievable life in the last 15 years. Not to say it wasn't before then, but definitely since 2010. Would you agree with me that you've been on, the train rails of life at that point versus just like kind of going with it? Like everything has just been kind of coming your direction. So what I want to do is I want to kind of back up and what sparked this love of barbecue, and it wasn't a career, and then all of a sudden it was. So
Yeah.
how did you take that love and then turn it into Big Moe Cason?
Well, I come from a large family. My grandmother had 17 kids, and so we always
Hold on,
had
hold
good.
on, hold on. 17? Your
Oh yeah.
so you had 16 aunts and uncles?
Yep. Yep.
No
Market.
wonder why you guys smoked food. You had to feed everybody. An oven wouldn't do shit.
Yeah, and I tell you what, man. Whenever we had cookouts, July 4th, the holiday stuff, we were always either going to my grandmother's house or we're going to the park, and we were a tight knit squad. My family, the Casons, we were a tight knit squad, man. We're a huge family, and those were always happy memories for me. You know what I mean? No matter what's going on in your life, whenever your aunts and uncles, your cousins were all at the park cooking, and they're cooking pork steaks or they're cooking some ribs or they're cooking chicken or burgers or whatever, dogs. That was always a positive experience for me. So that was ingrained in me at an early age. And then I started as a young man. My mom, we had a little 55-gallon drum cut in half, screwed to wooden legs, and that was in our backyard. And I would go and get a bag of Kingsford, throw it in there, get some lighter fluid, and then that's how I start teaching myself how to cook, how to manage a fire. And granted, I cooked a lot of horrible trash in the beginning, but that's how you learn. You know what I mean? I would go down to the river, catch bluegill. I'd go home and open up my mom's cabinet with all the spices and stuff, and I'd be trying to throw together some rubs, and it was like cardamom and cinnamon, all this crazy stuff, and it was absolutely disgusting. But I learned what complements certain things. You know what I mean?
Sure,
And
sure.
that was like 13, 14, and off and on, and then I went into the Navy, and when I got out of the Navy, one of the first things I did, I go to Walmart and I bought me a little cheap little Brinkman offset, a non-insulated piece of little crap for $49.99 that was on discount, and I brought that home and put it on my back deck, and that's when I started cooking, and I loved it, and I just did it to. I didn't know anything about barbecue shows on TV, none of that, and I started just cooking a lot, and then and my family were all my guinea pigs, and I would go and I would get all these. We had a store back at home called it was gone now, but it was called Pinsey Spices. A lot of viewers probably would know about them. They might still be in existence, but I love Pinsey Spices. They were all raw ingredients, spices, and I would get lemon peel, and I would go and get you know good quality black pepper, and I would garlic powder, and I would just make all these different recipes, and I would try them. I'd write everything down, and I wrote everything down. And that's how I started creating my own rubs and my own sauce. And I just kept building on that, and then all of a sudden I started seeing stuff on TV, these barbecue shows like Tuffy and Myron and Johnny Trigg and those guys, and I was just blown away. I was glued to the TV. And I'm like, they actually have barbecue competitions on TV. I didn't know anything about that, and so that just put the hook right in my mouth, man. And I was just like, okay, this is what I want to do. So we lived in a little 800 square foot house that I bought when I got out of the Navy. I bought it from a friend of mine for $25,000. A little ranch starter home that was built in the mid 40s, and we had my first baby in that house, first two babies, and I really wanted. And by this time, it was 2005, or 2004, and I'm like, man, I really want to start doing these competitions, but I didn't have any money. I mean, we lived paycheck to paycheck. My wife worked at the phone company, and I worked at the water company. And we're straight rabbit ears. Just paycheck to paycheck. But I said, how am I going to get any money up so I can buy a better smoker? I didn't want to go to the bank. I didn't want to go borrow any money, and so I talked with the wife, and I said, hey, man, this house on the corner that I live on the street. It was for sale. It's an old 1896 home that had been restored or whatever. And we bought that house, and I took that house, a little 800 square foot house. It was 4 houses down from the house I live now. And I gutted that thing down to bare studs. Now, I had friends of mine that were carpenters, plumbers, tile guys. So they're all good friends of mine. But they all charged me, but they didn't try to rake me over the coals, And I was able to take $11,000. I went to Habitat for Humanity. I would get scratch and dent stuff, paints and whatever, and I had $11,000 or $12,000 actual capital after I gutted this house. It took me a whole year. Took my paycheck, my little money extra. I would, pay these guys here and there, and I got that house done with $12,000. And I remember the realtor coming over, putting it on the market, and mind you, I bought the house for $25,000. Now, that house sat on the market for a week, and it sold for $89,900, and that completely blew me away. I never had nothing, never had anything that. I mean, it was just, it was incredible, and I was over the moon. And I remember the lady realtor coming over, bringing my check, and the first thing I did is I bought me a trailer and a pit. And then I put the rest in the bank, and that was 2000, coming up on 2006, and we had a big cook-off at the Iowa State Fairgrounds. It was called the Pork Barber Colossus. It was a big thing at that point. I think it was going on for 27 years, but all the big wigs all the big names come to that, and it was an all pork category. So it was whole hog, loin, pork shoulder, ribs, and butts, and that was all pork. It was funded by the National Pork Board, and Johnny Trigg, all the big name people were there, and I remember pulling into the contest. There's probably 80, 100 teams there, and I remember pulling down with my little rig, my Dodge Diesel, and my little trailer, and I had an old Hickory SDLX. That was my first big pit that I bought, and I love that pit. And it was a fixed shelf, had like a couple shelves in there, and I remember cooking my first cook-off, and I was just like, I was over the moon. And I did the best that I could, but I had a lot to learn for, looking at my results and stuff. But back there, that's what started my journey into competition barbecue.
So I've wondered, is in watching the show, right, when they would give you guys the clamshell case with lettuce for the the greenery or whatever, it looked like competition really is like a visual thing, almost kind of as much as the flavor of it. Like I feel like there were people that lost because the wing wasn't maybe cut right or they didn't trim it right, but that has no bearing on the flavor of it. That's just a visual presentation for, if you're gonna, effectively what you guys were saying is, if you're gonna do this for a living and charge people this, it should look a certain way. Am I right in that? Because obviously trimming it has no bearing on flavor.
Yeah, but with competition versus your backyard or cooking for vending or catering, competition, it is. You eat with your eyes first, because when a judge gets that clamshell and they're passing it around to the 6 judges, say KCBS, that's got to look good in the box. Meaning that your box presentation, before they put their mouths to it, put their fingers to it, it's got to look right, because that's a free score. That's the first score they write down, is how it appears, how it looks. So if you got a beautiful box as far as the meat laying in there nice, but then you didn't sauce the ribs. I'm not saying you have to sauce the ribs, but everything has got to look like a piece of art. I tell people, one of the little tricks I did, was that once, I'm a one-man team, so I did all the 4 categories. I had to do everything. So I would assemble a box, and you got a 30-minute window. So you turn chicken in at noon, and then 12:30 ribs are coming around. So I don't have other team members that can sit there and take this and take that. I had to do it all. And so I would take my box and put my chicken box together, and then I would take my camera and I would take a picture of it. And I can look at that picture and I'm like, oh my God. And you see, your garnish out of it look, didn't have any symmetry. And so you sit there and take your tweezers or your toothpicks and everything, and you work everything together. I mean, it's that finite, because say you and I were competing and we had same scores on taste and texture, but then I got a 9 in appearance, but you got a 7. I'm beating you in that. I'm going to beat you in that category. And we could have the same taste and tenderness score, but because I put it in the box and made it look beautiful, those are free points. So there's no reason why a competition team should not get 8s and 9s in appearance from the get-go.
I'm still stuck at the fact that you think you and I could be remotely in a competition together.
Yeah,
When you made,
yeah,
when you
we
said
can.
no, when you said that. So Steve Sock is watching tonight, and he made a comment earlier on how he's kind of geeking out because, like I said, he knew exactly who you were when I originally called him about this episode. But he asks here, and this is actually something that I think a lot of people have wondered that's not really been talked about ever on the cooking shows, but how do the plates stay warm? Let me see it again. I always wondered how the plates they judge stay warm, or do you just taste it at ambient temperature?
Well, it depends on what sanctioning body you're going to. Generally, they're all, once you turn stuff in, so you got 50 teams, and you turn your boxes in. So people, chicken category, everybody's taking one of their box up to the table to turn in the chicken. Okay, that goes to another staging area where they're getting ready to. And generally, they're pretty quick about taking that chicken and taking it and giving it to the judges. Now, that's totally different with other sectioning bodies. I that's one thing I love, that I cooked a lot of different sanctioning bodies, because you learn the rules. Like Memphis is amazing, my favorite cook-off. I love doing. They follow the MBN, Memphis Barbecue Network rules, which is all pork. But at KC Best, we teach ourselves to turn in everything as hot and fresh as possible, because it's going to sit for a little bit. Okay, so you don't want to have your ribs done an hour and a half sitting, and you're trying to warm and keep it in a Cambro or whatever, just trying to keep them warm.
It dry out.
Yeah, like for example, if ribs are due at 12:30, I'm actually slicing ribs, saucing them like at 12:15, 12:20. I'm taking them off, slicing them, putting them in the box, and running them into the judges. Whereas MBN, that was one of the mistakes I made when I first started getting into the MBM. Memphis. I cooked ribs for the first time. I cooked on another team and helping out, and I cooked ribs. Well, I'm got that mindset that I'm thinking KCBS. I want it hot, and I want it fresh.
Sure.
And so you got 3 judges that come in 15-minute intervals. Well, up to that point, my next door neighbor, he's cooking ribs. He's got a big old Traeger 200, and I remember him opening the door up, and it was like 8 o'clock in the morning, and all his ribs were done, and they were just sitting. The cooker wasn't even on. They were just sitting there, glazed up, sitting. And I looked, and I said to myself, "Oh, that guy's a fool. That guy's a fool." And I said to myself, "Well, when that first judge came to my tent, and I'm sitting there doing my dog and pony, talking about my pit, talking about the wood I use, talking about the seasoning, blah 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 blah, I walked that judge to the cooker, and right then and there, the light came on. Because after that, you got to go to your table and you got to start serving this judge what you just cooked."
Sure.
And I was thinking, oh my God, these ribs are at 200 degrees. These ribs are at 200 degrees. So I grabbed my spatula, and I knew right then and there I was screwed. I picked that slab of ribs up, and I took it over to the table, and the steam's just rolling. And that judge is just looking at me like this. He's looking down at the rib. He's looking up at me. He doesn't want to grab that rib. It's almost 200 degrees. And I just had this stuck look on my face like, oh my God. So I set the rib on his plate, and he just looked at it. He took his fingers, kind of moved the rib around, there's a couple ribs, and then he only has 15 minutes. So he picked that rib up and he tried to take a couple bites out, and it was just super hot. He put the rib down. I knew right then and there I was screwed. And so he thanked me, I thanked him, the team thanked him, and he said to me, he goes, "I'm gonna come back and talk to you after this is all over." And I said, "Okay." And I already knew in the back of my head what he was gonna tell me. And he came back and he says that rib was absolutely delicious for what 1 or 2 bites I was gonna get off of it. But he said it was piping hot. Right then and there, that told me that guy next to me, he knew what the hell he was doing. His ribs were already done, and they were just sitting there chilling. Now maybe he had that one trigger down low, but it wasn't running, because it would be smoking like crazy if it was. Or he turned it back up right before the judges came, whatever, to put a little heat in them. But he knew what he was doing because he was experienced in cooking Memphis in May, where it was my first time. And those are the little nuances you learn between different sanctioning bodies. And I've been fortunate enough to cook Texas rules, IBCA, Texas Gulf Coast, GBA, Georgia Barbecue Association, FBA, Florida Barbecue Association, and cooking all these different sanctioning bodies with different rules. I love that challenge, and I love to learn. And I was always a learning, and still to this day, I'm still a learning pitmaster. But you learn how to present things, you learn how to cook things.
Before we move on to a little bit more into this, guys, we've got a lot of giveaways tonight. Okay, I've got 2 coffee mugs, Red Meat Lovers coffee mugs. Mo, would you hold them up and show everybody what it is? So, Mo's got a wonderful libation in that coffee mug. We've got 2 over here in box still, and I've got a leaf ashtray and 2 boxes of cigars. Both boxes of cigars are signed by Steve. And one, of course, is a Red Meat Lovers. Yes, there's the box that we sent Mo. One is a Red Meat Lovers, and one is a Stillwell Star aromatic number 22. So this is the new aromatic, since the first one was the number 1. All right. So let's see. Okay, so before we get to that, Steve, we're going to go ahead and do our first 2 giveaways right now. All right, guys? We're going to make it real simple here. All you got to do is type in Red Meat Lovers. That's it. Just type in Red Meat Lovers. You'll have a few minutes here, and then we'll do our first 2 drawings. And both will be for the mug. We're going to start with the mug. We'll finish with the ashtray. So first 2 mugs, in the comment section, type in the words Red Meat Lovers, and it will pick it up here. So let me go ahead and turn that on. All right, so we got 4 entries in. So Mo, as we're getting here, Steve had a quick question here. So what state has been your favorite overall style of barbecue?
You're asking me that?
Yes.
Texas.
Now, see, I loved Texas. I went to Black's. I can never remember the guy's first name. His barbecue place. It was great. It was awesome. I like a little bit of a saucier barbecue, though. Like,
There's nothing wrong with that, and that's the thing about Texas. I'm from Iowa, so I was raised on saucy barbecue, but I've evolved, me personally, over the years as I start doing more cook-offs out in Texas, which I love cooking in Texas. I love going to Texas. Got a lot of friends in Texas, and there's something to say about when you can take just a few ingredients, say for example brisket, which is king in Texas, and when I ate my first Texas brisket at a barbecue restaurant, I was blown away. It was my good friend. It was Law Barbecue back in the day. John Lewis was the pit master for that, and I remember going back to the hotel and sitting down and eating in my hotel room, and I was just amazed on how good that brisket was, and how good the ribs were, and how good it was. Just everything was good. Everything spoke to me. I'm a seasoning guy. So
Yeah.
if you got bland barbecue, here's the thing about sauce. I love Kansas City. A lot of my family, the Casons, are from Kansas City. I got tons of family there now. I'm a big Kansas City Chiefs fan. I love Kansas City. Matter of fact, one of our stops for family reunion, we stop in Kansas City every 3 years, and it's good. Don't get me wrong. LCs or Arthur Brown, whatever. I mean, they're good. But when there's something to say when you got a piece of meat that has no sauce on it and it still talks to you.
You're right. You're right, because you're literally taking a and if, especially when it comes to Texas barbecue, and not even barbecue at like yeah, Texas barbecue would be it's very salt and pepper. And beef and pork hold up very well to it. So I do agree with you. I like dipping. I get it, and I get it. I'm a dipper. Especially when it comes to wings, Mo. I rip it off and dip it in some ranch and right in. So all right,
Nothing,
everybody, we've got
nothing.
15 entries here. Last 10 seconds, we will make the calls. There's gonna be no complaining if you're not in the entry. You don't get to be part of it. We're going to be switching it up for the next couple ones too. So if you have not typed in Red Meat Lovers yet, please go ahead and do so. Yeah, I would agree with you, John. Nothing compares to Texas brisket. Steve says here, I like pork from the Carolinas, but in the end, brisket is the thing, and that's most important to me. I agree with you. Now Mo, I like the entire brisket. I'm a point guy though.
Oh,
For
yeah. I mean,
anybody that doesn't know a brisket, there's two sections of it.
yep.
Mo, can you explain kind of the difference real quick between a flat and a point?
Yeah. So if you get like a full packer brisket, you can see like if you go to Costco or Sam's or wherever you get your briskets from. Generally, you get briskets processed two ways. Generally, you're going to see a full packer, and that's going to be a brisket that has the flat and the point still attached. The point is the best part of that whole brisket. It's going to have
Yes.
marbling. It's going to be juicier. It's just a beautiful. So if I'm going to eat brisket, if I go to a restaurant down in Texas, when they ask you, do you want the fatty or the lean? They're going to ask you
Fatty.
that. I want the fatty. Oh my
Yeah.
God. It's like, I just love it. I just love it. And when you do it right and you get that fat that's kind of like, it's called a sugar cookie. It's kind of sticks to your teeth. And it's just the flavor is just, it's awesome.
I
And,
know. It's
and,
amazing.
and, and, and to get back, I mean, there's nothing wrong with sauce. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with a sauce brisket or, I mean, it's all good. But my preference as I've evolved through my barbecue life, even at home when I cook at home. When I cook at home, I don't sauce anything, even though I got great sauces. The sauce is in the refrigerator. If my daughters want sauce, they just go in the refrigerator and warm some up and whatever. But my girls have kind of evolved like I have. They were little kids. They were my guinea pigs. So whenever I cook brisket or I cook chicken wings, I don't put sauce on them. You can, and it'd be amazing. But I like my barbecue without sauce. Like for example, I love North Carolina barbecue. A lot of people where I'm from in Iowa, they were like, "Oh no." I love North Carolina barbecue. Chopped pork with vinegar, a little red pepper flake, just a skosh of brown sugar, just a skosh, some salt, pepper. Man, it's delicious. I can eat that all day long. And you go down to South Carolina where they got mustard. You know what I mean? And I like it all. Don't get me wrong. And I like Kansas City style barbecue too. But my personal favorite is Texas style barbecue.
I tell you what, I made one mistake tonight, guys, by having Mo virtually on the show. I should have went out to his house because we're talking all this food. I should have been like, Mo, let's smoke some food and have a show. Like my gosh, I just want to try. Like, you don't even understand. Like all this is just. I'm never gonna be a thin man. I'm never gonna I'm never gonna be a thin man. All right, everybody. So we're gonna go ahead and choose the first two winners of the night. Let's see here. We've got Chris as the first one. I'm writing names down, so give me a quick second. All right. And then next winner we have is Dark Day Studios Red Deer. Okay. Dark Day Studios. That is a new one that I'm not used to. So please reach out to me on Facebook and give me your name and address to do the shipping to. And Chris, if you could send over your information as well. All right, so let me get this in here. Dark Day Studios Red Deer. It sounds like a hunting organization that does like that's got a studio for the to take you hunting with and like record it. All right, so we'll do the next giveaways here before too long. So next up are going to be the two boxes of cigars, and then we've got the leaf ashtray. All three boxes are signed by Steve. So we will give those away here in a bit. So I wanted to kind of ask, when it comes to people putting sauces on, like if I'm cooking a steak, I like to think I cook a good steak, right? I don't do sauces with steak. I'm a naturalist when it comes to that. Oh, tattoo shop. Okay, Dark Day is a tattoo shop. All right, so there you go, right up Moe's alley. We'll get to that. Uh, Moe's almost got a suit going on, or he's at least working on it. We'll definitely get to that. So, but when somebody puts like a sauce on, do you obviously you're too nice of a guy to be like, what are you doing? But do you ever like if it's family or like a nephew go like, what's your problem? Like, come on, taste it
No,
first. Taste it.
no, no. I mean, even when I judge on TV or at a cook-off, I'm judging. Uh, I judge for what's in front of me, and I don't mark it down just because it has sauce on it. You're not doing. You're not a good judge if that's the case. You judge it for what it is. I'm real adamant about that. So if you're presenting ribs that have a raspberry glaze on it, is it good?
No, I'm talking about in your private life, like friends and family. Like my dad always used to tell me, taste it before you add something to it. Do you ever like
Yeah,
want to be like, dude, you don't need sauce, like especially when it's like family, you can get away
well,
with that shit.
that's true. But like my mom was old school. You know what I mean? I remember when I cooked her a steak for the first time. It's first and last time. I would not cook a steak well done. I did for her because that's what she wanted. But
Yes,
that's a
Chris, you were.
travesty. It's a travesty. And I remember I gave her the steak, it was medium rare, beautiful cooked, and she was like, it ain't done. I was like, Mom, it's done. She said, it ain't done. She put it back on the pit. It ain't done. I ain't. So I had to cook the death out of that steak. My mom came from a different generation, where they see a little pink and they're like, oh, no. But that is the way, me personally, I like a grilled steak. I'm not a big fan of cooking steaks in skillets and butter and time, and spices. And I'm sure it's good. I've ate at some of the best steakhouses in the country. New York and Chicago and Tony Luke. I mean, and they're good. But you give me a steak cooked over flame kiss over a low fire or a hot fire. There's nothing that touches that in my opinion. Like one of the things I did for my briskets for competition, and it hurt and it helped you depending on where you're at in the country. I grill my briskets out in the beginning. So I would have like a can. At the time I had green eggs, big green eggs bolted to the back of my trailer. And I would have my old hickory behind me. And so I would start the fire up and I would set it up to like 300 degrees. So it's direct low fire, but the egg is set at 300 degrees. Just direct. No place set or nothing in it, just direct, but low fire. And I would start that brisket out over low fire for an hour. And it's at 300 degrees. And my pit behind me, it was at 300 degrees. And so what I would do is I would take that brisket for an hour and I would only flip it once, and I would get that flame kiss. Because you can only get that cooking over direct fire. You cannot get that in the offset. You can't get that in a gravity feed. In a smoker where the meat is not over fire, you're not going to get that. And so I would start that. And then after I had about an hour, a little over an hour, I would take it and transfer it to my big pit, which that's where you're going to get the traditional smoke flavor. So my briskets always took on a grilled steaky smoked brisket flavor, and I love that flavor. And that's who I was. That's what I liked. I liked doing that. And it doesn't, it's different. I remember I made the regionals at Sam's Club. They used to have a Sam's Club championship, KCBS did. And I remember I made it out of the local, and I made it to the regional. The regional was in Tennessee. And I remember all these teams from Florida, Alabama, Georgia, they were all there. I think I was the only dude from Iowa that was there. And I remember all kind of parked around each other. And one of the traditions, a lot of, when you're cool with people and you're friends with them, after you turn the brisket in, everybody would bring a slice of brisket out and we'd all spot brisket. And I remember tasting everybody's brisket, and they tasted mine. And I was really proud of my brisket, but it totally tastes different than everybody's brisket. See, down in the South, a lot of those guys cooked in pans, in gravity feed type cookers or offsets, whatever they used, or backwood smokers. They cook the brisket in a pan, and that's how they cook. That's just what it is. And I always cook mine directly on the grate. And I remember the guys were saying, "Damn, Mo, that's a delicious brisket." But they flat out said they ain't gonna do nothing here. All those judges are used to what? They're used to briskets that are cooked in a pan.
Oh.
You know what I mean? And they all have the similar flavors. And that's the downside of competition. A lot of these guys jump on a lot of the same stuff because they want to win. They want to get a call.
Oh, it's regionally. Cooking is regional too.
And I, that was a long ride home, man. Because I knew I had, in my opinion, I had the best brisket amongst the group that I was tasting brisket with. My brisket had flavor. You know what I mean? Like flavor. And so, but they didn't do a damn thing down there. You know what I mean? And
Wow.
So that's one of the things you learn. You learn the nuances of when you go to different cook-offs, things of that nature. Just like when when I started going down to Texas and cooking. I was already going to Texas cooking on a lot of these big name teams out of Oklahoma, Missouri. A lot of them didn't never cook in Kansas City. It was a big cook-off, 100 teams out in Midland, Texas. I remember that. And by this time, I already been cooking in Texas a little bit here and there. I kind of got the sense of the flavor and the flow in Texas. And I remember walking out of Cook's meeting, and all these big name guys I know and friends I'm with out of Kansas City, out of Oklahoma, out of Kansas, and I said, "Hey guys," and we're just, chewing the fat as we're walking back to our areas. I said, "You better put a little mesquite to that brisket, man, or to your pork and everything." And I remember guys are piping up, "Man, my pit's never seen mesquite. I ain't never put no mesquite through my pit. My pit, I said, "All right, man. I'm just telling you, dude. These judges, when you cook IBCA, they're off the street, and where are they going to eat their barbecue at? The local barbecue restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't know or two cares about a KCBS, even though it was a KCBS cook-off for one of the first early ones that were happening in Texas. It was IBCA. It was a KCBS cook-off, and I remember these are guys. These are world champ cookers that I know that won everything. And I remember when they called the top, and for me it was a badge of honor to get a top 5 call in brisket, or top 10 period in Texas, because it's one thing they do. A lot of them boys down there, they know how to cook brisket. They may not have cooked pork butt very well, or that's something that's new to them at that time. But I remember, I think I was third in brisket, and a lot of these guys, if I was up in Missouri, I was in Kansas City, a lot of these guys, like clockwork, would beat me in brisket. They would beat me in Oklahoma. They beat me, in Missouri or Kansas. I mean, a lot of these big names, they knew the flavor up there, and that's the way they did it. But that's learning, when I was, 2 o'clock in the morning cooking my brisket, and 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock, I'm throwing post oak, and then that third or fourth hour, I'm throwing a stick of mesquite. Bloop. Because what happens is when they open up that clamshell and that aroma comes off of that piece of meat, if it doesn't smell like something they're used to,
yep,
already got stuff in the foot. It may taste good, but it don't smell right. If you think you're going to go down to West Texas and cook a brisket on cherry, 100%. I'm going to tell you, because
that's a sweet wood.
No, it's just a completely different flavor. Now, you may be able to get away with that in North Dakota or Wisconsin or something. I'm not knocking that, but I'm just saying, they're very, regimented in Texas of how they cook. Now it's evolved over the years. Now there's all this sweet stuff that's in, but you get like early briskets in Texas competition, and people that know the brisket. Like I started cooking Wagyu a long time ago, and Wagyu. I remember when Wagyu was new in the competition game. A lot of people weren't cooking Wagyu; they were cooking prime or they're cooking choice, especially down in Texas. But when you cook a Wagyu brisket well, it's super soft. It's super delicious, but super soft. And so when you're getting a brisket that is not as tender, but it's what they're used to, and then you get a brisket that's super, super tender, it kind of throws them off a little bit, especially when these judges are off the street. They're going to their mom and pop barbecue joints, and they want brisket that has that same type of texture.
Correct.
Early briskets, people like Aaron Franklin changed the game in Texas as far as cooking a brisket, because he would cook a brisket towards the back end to where it got real soft, and that's how he served it. And people were like blown away by it. It tasted great, but also the texture was amazing. And he's just cooking prime briskets, creekstones. He was just cooking creekstone briskets, but he knew how to cook them right. You know what I mean? You cook them for a long time at a lower temperature to break down, because as you get down in inferior briskets, you need to babysit them more. They're not as forgiving as a Wagyu brisket. You know what I mean?
Sure. It's like dark meat's more forgiving than white meat, as far as like on a chicken. You could slightly overcook a thigh and still be very good, juicy, but do that with a breast and you're screwed.
Yeah.
So question here, we've actually got a few questions here for you, Mo. Question from Derek Johnson. He asks, how much of a difference does wood type matter to the flavor and smoking, and which wood species are your favorite to use?
Wood is, as my good friend Tuffy would always say, he would say this on the show. He would say that to people. Wood is treat wood like a spice. That's what you're doing. You're adding that flavor to the brisket. So if you're cooking with oak, if you're cooking with pecan, if you're cooking with apple, you're cooking with whatever, all those woods, as you're burning them, they're imparting their flavor onto that protein. So you want to use, first of all, you want to use woods that you can easily get in your area. You know what I'm saying? I personally have evolved to where I love post oak and pecan. Those are my two main woods I use exclusively on all my proteins: my chicken, my brisket, my pork butt, my ribs, and everything. Now, if I go down to Georgia and cook, what do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to do a little hickory, and I might do a little peach, because that's what them judges are used to. People like Myron, they cook strictly on peach. So they're used to that type of flavor. You know what I mean? You're not going down to Georgia and cooking a brisket on straight mesquite. You can hang that up. Just like I told you, you can't be going to West Texas and cooking a brisket on cherry. You can't be going to Georgia and thinking I'm going to show you and I'm going to go ahead and cook this brisket on mesquite. The odds are you're going to get dinged on it, because it's not going to taste like anything they're used to. It could be good, but I'm just saying, you cook with what is available in the area.
So are you at all a believer in pellets?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've been told, but some people think it's cheating. I like it because I'm just going to show my age, but it's like the Ronco version of smoking, right? Kind of set it and forget it type deal. Yeah, you don't have to play and poke, and
Man,
that's why I like it.
People that chime in on that, they really don't understand the barbecue culture. They really don't. You could be regimented on that, but if that person wants to use a pellet grill to achieve what they want to do, they're cooking barbecue. Let them. So be it. I got two pellet grills on my back deck. I love my girls. My daughter. I got 4 daughters, and my late wife. She passed away a year and a half ago. But she ain't going out firing up my big offset pit. She's not going out firing. Oh no. She might want. But when you got two pellet grills on the back deck, what they can do? They open up the French doors. They go out and they go boop, and they go and fire it up. As long as the pellets are in the box, and they can go do their thing, and all's right with the world. And then when they get done, they just go boop, turn it off. They're not going out firing that pit up, trying to cook 4 hamburgers. They're not doing it.
No, and using the pellet smoker is a great way to just relax and still make people think you're doing stuff because you get up, you open it every now. It's like having like three pots and pans on the stove with just steaming water. You just open them every now and then. People think you're actually doing more than you are, but you still get to
No,
kind
look,
of sit
no,
there. And,
it's a tool. Now, does a pellet grill have the same bark formation
no,
offset? No, because that's an offset pit is my favorite type of pit. Period. An offset pit, I don't think there's no pit out there, in my opinion, that rivals a traditional offset pit. Because when you get an offset pit that's designed right, the air movement. I mean, I could take my hand over I got an M&M barbecue pit, and you could take your hand and put it up by that stack. You could feel it, the draft coming off and pushing against your hand. You open up that firebox door, and you can see the flames are wanting to be pulled into the chamber because of the draft. That is a well-designed pit. If that pit you open up and it's like the sputtering and it's not really drawn, there's a lot of reasons that could be. That could be the design of the pit, obviously too small of a firebox, the exit, the stack dimensions, the stack length. There's a reason why it's all mathematics. That's why people want to get plans. I mean, there's good helpful tools if you want to make your own pit. But I suggest people to go to people who make pits for a living. They understand that. Unless you know that, you might cause yourself a problem. You get a pit. Oh, I got this pit. It just don't flow. It just don't run right. Well, why come it don't run right? Well, look at it. It don't run right. It just
look at it.
It's because there's a reason for that. You know, I learned leave it to the pros, man. The pit builders that know how to build pits. A good pit it's a beautiful thing.
And that's why they charge so much for them. And
Well,
it's like, don't wire your own house and expect to not maybe get shocked.
Exactly.
So here's another question here from Jason. Now this is one that I have never heard of before. Maybe you have. But he asks, what's the difference between European baby back ribs and regular baby back ribs other than cost? Are you familiar?
Generally, I've cooked over in Australia. I've cooked in New Zealand. I've cooked in Germany. The pork, first off, when you go to those countries, everything is grass fed. I'm from Iowa, man. We corn fed. So I'm used to that flavor. Not saying that it's not good, because it is. I won a contest in Australia, in Perth, Australia, with the Wagyu A9 Australian brisket. Did it taste different than I'm used to? Yes. But I understand that, and I executed the best that I could, and I ended up getting first place in that brisket. But when you get something that's grass-fed 100%, not saying it's bad, but it's different. Just like when them boys come over here to cook at a cook-off over here, that throws them off. Having cow that's been grained, grained, and at the end of his life, grain.
Is it the fat that's different? Like, is it the way it cooks?
It's not only the fat; it's the texture of the flavor of the tissues.
Is it soft? It doesn't have like a lot of chew?
No, I noticed the ribs over there, like I was in Germany, they cook quicker, and it totally quicker. You know, totally quicker. Okay. The brisket, it cooked quicker. When you get 100% grass fed, it's just a little bit quicker, and you just got to learn to make an adjustment when you're cooking that. But I'm corn fed dude, so I'm used to what I'm growing up with, and I'm looking, cows that eat grass and they get grained out right at the end. Because what is corn? Corn turns to what? Into sugar. Sugar turns fat. Fat is flavor.
No, this is true. Well, I have a feeling I'm going to be getting a phone call from Steve Moe after this episode of somehow getting you out to New Hampshire, maybe, because I think Steve's having a lot of fun watching on this and commenting and everything, and so this is a lot of fun. No, I could actually, I think, answer this question. You've never owned a restaurant, correct, Mo?
Never. I was going to open one. Me and my buddy Bobby T. We're going to open one up in Huntsville, Texas, but that fell through with the other partner not, honoring what he was supposed to do. So I cut ties before we even opened the doors because I knew that this was going to be a train wreck, I said, and then Bob and I said, we don't want no part of that. And I'm glad I didn't do it. I mean, I'm glad we didn't do that.
Well, restaurants are a pain and can be a huge pain. And
Yeah.
then the hardest part about a restaurant is replicating yourself within the restaurant so you don't have to live there. You
Well,
know,
yeah.
and that's really hard.
And I get a lot of opportunities to go all over, and that's, to be honest, it's business, man. I can make X amount of dollars by doing a trip. Now, granted, it might be a one-hit deal, but you know, there's a lot of times I thought about having a restaurant. And I know if I opened one up, it would be fantastic.
Oh, it'd be huge.
But you're tied to that restaurant. And
Correct.
I know lots of friends of mine who have restaurants, and it's a tough business, but then it's also a gratifying business too. They have people come in there and eat your food, and you're executing great food. And a lot of people go, well, you can't replicate that. Yes, you can. I got friends of mine in Texas and other places that are making outstanding barbecue day in and day out because they know how to cook it. They know how to cook it, they know how to hold it, and they know how to process it. A lot of these people, they start getting lazy, and they start, and another thing is it's employees. You know what I mean? You can have a simple instructions next to the smoker and say, add a stick of pecan at 6 o'clock, and you'll get some young cat in there just, I forgot. I'm sorry. Well, that's your name, man.
Yeah, big time.
I'm really regimented on how I do stuff. When I do a cook-off, I'm really regimented on what I do because I know what works for me, and I try to emulate that. I try to make, every time I go on, I try to emulate that. And when you have someone, you gotta have people that's invested in, believes in your vision. Some people just want a paycheck. That's fine. And then there's some employees that really want to see you do well because when you do well, they do well. And so it's just it is gratifying. I mean, I'm not saying it's not because it is, but I've been very fortunate. I worked 24 years as the midnight water treatment operator in the city. I got a full pension I haven't touched yet. I got deferred comp I haven't touched yet. And I'm living my best life, and I'm able to come and go as I please. I can get in my truck right now, and I can drive to North Carolina if I want. You know what I mean? You can't do that when you got a restaurant. You just can't.
No, you can't. And it just takes so much of, you're a traveling guy at this point. Like I don't think you could be tied down, Mo. You are all literally all over the world. With cooking and tours and competitions, and so I think a restaurant at this point in your career wouldn't be fun for you because you wouldn't be able to get out and go to Australia or go to Germany and do a lot of that freedoms that you have.
I probably stroke out. I probably stroke out. Seriously, because seriously, that's how passionate I am about it, and then someone, you get some employees in there that are stealing from you or not doing right by you, and you got to constantly stay on them. You shouldn't have to do that, but that's the human species, man. I mean, there's people that just don't care. They just want a paycheck. They don't care about how you started. They don't care about, there's some that do. There's some, like I said, there's some great employees out there, but there's some people that they just want a paycheck, man. And so they don't really care, and you can ask them to go out and take the trash out. And all of a sudden, trash is not taken out.
Or they drag it on the floor and it gets broken open. Why didn't you just pick it up? One of the craziest things I've ever had to show somebody how to do is actually use a broom. I never thought in my life that you actually had to show somebody how to use a broom and a mop. But lo and behold, people don't understand that simple concept. So to your point, yeah, your employees could really screw your name up. I wanted, you're a huge avid hunter. And that's to no one's, I don't think anyone's shock or surprise that follows you. You've posted many pictures of you holding up game that you've shot or in hunting. So I want to flip here because I find that most game meat, at least in the deer family, is incredibly lean. It doesn't almost matter whether it's elk, moose, caribou, deer, mule deer. It's all very very lean. How do you go about preparing your deer meat, whether it be elk or caribou or moose or any of that, to where you could actually smoke it to the point where it's not just getting dried out. I've never tried. I've always been afraid because it'll
Well,
dry.
first off, I don't smoke any of my venison. I don't smoke any of my elk. I grill it because it's lean because it doesn't have any internal marbling.
Okay, so you wouldn't be able to get away with even like an injection smoke on something like that.
Yeah, I just, in my personal opinion, when it comes to venison, I grill it. I don't care if it's a roast. I don't care for chops. I grill my deer to medium rare, and that's it.
Do you ever put like a low 180-degree smoke on it for like 30 minutes and then grill it so you're kind
Yeah,
of
you could.
bathing it like that?
You can, but you just don't want to overshoot the internal temperature. Once you get up to like past medium rare on venison, it's just like a pork chop or a pork loin. Pork loin's done between 142, 143. It's done. Now you leave it on the smoker, and as you take it past that, now you're cooking the moisture that's going to give you that good flavor and moisture. That's going out the window. Okay, I made that mistake. Remember, I told you my first cook-off was pork barbecue losses. Well, pork
Yeah.
loin was one of the first things I did. Well, I took that pork loin off at 190.
Oh, pork loin's pretty lean too.
So, needless to say, I had dust for a pork loin, but I learned. I learned that you need to bring it down to the low 140s, and then it's beautiful.
Now,
Juicy, flavorful. And I do the same thing with elk. I do the same thing with venison. Those type of animals. Unless you got like a crock pot and you're doing like where it's surrounded by fluid and you're just cooking it like that. But I grill all my venison out, all my chops, all my roast. I grill them out and then I slice them.
what has been a piece of game, whether you hunted it, somebody gave it to you to play with, or you were visiting somebody, they threw out a table where you were like, I'm not quite sure how to cook this, but we're gonna figure it out. Like, what was the most challenging piece of game meat that you've done? And it could be like alligator, it could be anything that swims, anything along those lines, just nothing like store bought.
Mm, to be honest, I haven't had. I kind of have a good understanding of by looking at the meat. I cooked some exotic game.
Okay, so what's the
Uh,
most exotic game you've ever cooked successfully?
cook a lot. Like when I went in Australia, man, we shot fallow deer. That's probably one of the best. That runs circle. It's probably I never had access. That's on my list this year, but fallow deer, and I have had some great whitetail. The key is it's the processing of that. When you shoot that deer, once you know that deer is dead, you get out and you gut it right there on the spot. You
Sure,
gut
field
it.
dress it. Yeah.
You don't sit there and bring it back, and let it sit for a little bit, then get after it. You got to get it and you got to cool it down, and then you gotta get it processed, and that's the big thing. A lot of guys will have the damn deer sitting in the back of the pickup truck and still has guts in them, even if the guts are out of it. You want to get that out, and you want to age it a little bit, but you want to do it in the cooler and let it hang a little bit and get a little age on it, and then it's good to go. But it also has to do with what that animal is eating. When you got venison, deer eating acorns, that's nothing but love. Like I was in Texas and it shot me a nice big muley last fall. Was it last? Yeah, last fall. And but I have no intentions of eating mule deer. I'm sure it's good, but what do they eat? Sage grass. They don't. It ain't like whitetail. You know, uh, they may look close alike, but they're the way they live is totally different. Muleys are they eat differently. I'm not saying you can't get good meat off of them.
Oh,
I'm
for
sure.
sure. No, I get what you're saying. Kind of their surroundings is gonna what be more of how they're gonna taste. And when you're eating
Exactly.
sage-grass versus acorns, I mean, I would rather eat acorns myself versus
Yeah.
sage-grass. You know.
Exactly.
So
That's it.
what has been like? Have you been a guest to like a cookout where you were kind of taken aback by some of the techniques, or it was kind of foreign for you? I'm thinking of like an Australian like cookout, like or some maybe of the countries where they bury the stuff in the ground and they cook it like that. Like what has been kind of the
Oh,
most unique style you've seen?
I've had pigs that are put in the ground. They're delicious, but it's almost like oven pork. Even though you wrap them with banana leaves, they put it in the ground, coals. They're surrounded by leaves to keep the moisture in and to protect it. So it's almost like cooking in a la cocina. You know what la cocina is, right? A la cocina is like a wooden box. They put the pig in, and then
Yes,
yeah, that will never. You might texturally get that and put quality enough rub on there to taste good, but it ain't like taking a pig, putting it on a big old 1,000-gallon offset or your pit or a cinder block pit. It can't compare. It can't compare, in my opinion. So it's all about what that animal ate throughout its life, the quality of the animal, and how you prep it and how you cook it. All those things take into account of what your finished product is going to be. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
Uh,
yeah, absolutely.
you
That makes total sense. And have you ever seen these videos of people cooking like I saw a video of a guy cooking a whole camel.
Yeah, I've had camel before.
So what is the biggest animal you've ever cooked or seen cooked whole? Like I watched a guy cook literally an entire camel
Uh,
in a grill. And you had mentioned an old hickory, and I know a lot of guys that use old hickories for full pigs.
when I was in Australia for meat stock, they had a bunch of boys over there, cook guys, pit masters, and it was a display thing, but it was also to feed the audience. And there's hundreds of people, so they had a steer, full size steer,
Wow.
on an open rotisserie with a tray full of coals at the bottom, and it had a little ute, which is a little truck that had one of the axles off, and they had a chain gear drive, and so they had this little ute truck idling, turning the spit, and it was, when I mean full size cow, I mean full size cow.
Head to tail, full thing intact.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the head was gone.
Well, yeah, but like the
But
whole
it was,
body.
it was amazing. And I would cut,
Wow.
and so basically, it's being spun, and you got this charcoal being cooked. I got another one that's even cooler than that. But basically, I made a sauce, a whiskey bourbon kind of barbecue sauce, thin, and so we would cut these pieces of beef off. You just hit it with a little bit of sauce. People were just going nuts over it. But probably one of the most interesting ways of cooking things was when I did that show for Nat Geo called A World of Flavor Big Moe Cason. I went to Colombia, and it was a life-changing experience. We went down to the lowlands, which is like the country, and the Llaneros, which is the indigenous Colombian cowboys. And they're all right on horseback. They don't wear shoes. They have huge machetes that hang from their waist. They all it is true cowboys, and they all raise Brahma. Brahma is like the cattle that's over there, and they take a cow, and I watch the whole process. And at the end of the season, the eating of the harvest season, they take these cows, they put them out to all these different like paddocks and let them just graze. They're open free range, but they would sit there and manage these big herds of Brahma. And then they would take the young female and they would pick one out, and the female cowgirls, excellent horseback riders, unbelievable. So it was the ladies' job. There was a group of them, and they would single out a heifer, and they would go, and the heifer would just take off running, and they would run this cow down, lasso it, and they'd bring it back to camp, and they tie it to a tree for 24 hours to let it purge itself. They didn't feed it anything; they just let it do its thing for about a day, and then they dispatch it. And they used everything. I mean, they take the skin off beautifully. They lay the skin out on the ground, and then they start cutting pieces off of this cow and laying it on the inside of that skin. And they had all the cuts, and I told them, I noticed that when I was over in Colombia, they cook things well done, everything, beef. I mean, you ain't gonna find. I mean, in my experience, when I was there for a week, you didn't find any restaurant selling medium rare. It was always well done, well done. And I told him, I said, I don't want you guys to take these tenderloins and cook them to well done. And I had a translator tell them that. I said, save me the tenderloins, and they did. So they gave me two. And so they had this old cowboy. He created a fire on the ground, big fire on the ground, and they had all these wooden sticks off of trees. They sharpened. These sticks were probably 3 or 4 inches in diameter, or 3 inches in diameter, and they would skewer all of this meat, and then they would sit these skewers all around the fire. And this old cowboy sitting on a bench with a cigar. His job was, he was the OG. He was the OG in the tribe, and he would go and he would spin. He would monitor, and he would spin the meat as it's cooking on the ground to make sure all of it gets cooked evenly. That was so cool, man. That was so cool to see that, man.
That is some ancient style of cooking, and for sure.
Yeah.
And that's a humbling way, because you don't have that old hickory or that green egg at that point.
No,
And
no.
that's really where your knowledge and understanding of really temperatures and where, just by looking at a coal barbecue and you putting your hand over it, your experience of where you could be like, all right, that's the hot side, that's going to be a little bit of a colder side. That takes skill, because there are people that literally will tell you, yeah, I just turned the grill on high and I cook till it's done, and it's like, it takes a little bit more finesse than that.
Yeah, you
and
got to know what you're cooking. You got to know what you're cooking. You got to understand it. All cooking is just chemistry. It's all it is. So you're just gonna take your piece of meat, and I tell people, me and my buddy Bob Turnack, we do barbecue classes all over the country, and we got one coming up in a couple weeks in Atlanta. And I tell them, you gotta learn. I can tell you, and Bob and I can tell you these steps and these procedures, but what's really gonna sink in is when you actually are doing it and learning. When you're probing that brisket and watching it feel, when you're probing that pork butt, or when you're looking at that ribs and you taking that rib and feeling it, those are things that you got to learn. You have to personally experience to learn. Someone could tell you that, but until you do it yourself, it doesn't really sink in.
No, and that's where learning and failing comes into play, because when you fail it, then it sinks in. So we're gonna do our second giveaway of the night, and this is for 2 boxes, both signed by Steve. One is for the aromatic number 22, and one is for the red meat lovers. We'll have the red meat lovers up first, and then the aromatic 22. It's really simple. All you got to do is type in Big Moe, no parentheses, just Big Moe, into the chat now, and we'll let it run for a few minutes until everybody gets entries in. But this will be for 2 boxes, and then as we get closer to the end of the show, we'll give away the leaf ashtray. So anybody watching right now, type in the words Big Moe to be entered into the box giveaway contest. So Mo, I know you had talked about cooking with your grandmother, learning to cook from your grandmother. What lessons did you learn from her that influenced kind of a barbecue style today, or was that not part of your family growing up?
No, my grandmother, she just cooked to take care of her kids. She had 17 kids, so she cooked like a lot of people cook barbecue. Barbecues come from humble beginnings, and it wasn't all this glorified competition. None of that. It was feeding people, feeding your neighbors, feeding your community. That's what it was. That's what barbecue was. Barbecue is a way to preserve that piece of meat for a little longer. because you put smoke to it. And so she just cooked, not because she was trying to impress anybody. She knew she had to cook, and she was just cooking to feed her family. And so that, for me, watching her cook, that is what she watched my sister and I. My mom worked; she was a seamstress her whole life. She worked two jobs. She would leave 4 o'clock in the morning, and she wouldn't be back till night. So when my sister and I got out of school, my grandmother lived like 4 blocks from me. So we would walk down to my grandmother's house, and she would watch us until my mom got home. And I was, she was just an awesome cook. That's all to it. I mean, everything she made from scratch, and I just loved how she just, matter of fact, just put it down.
What's something today you still cook that she taught you or used to make that you love?
Potato salad and her
Potato
greens.
salad. What about her potato salad was so remarkable that you still do it today?
I cook my potato salad is like my grandmother's. First of all, it's a mayo mustard based type potato salad. It's the flavor. It's the diced red onions. It's the small diced gherkins that are in there. Uh, it's the celery seed. At the end of the cap, for a visual effect, it's the paprika. It's the smell. I love it when she would make fresh batch of potato salad. My mom was the same way. It was still warm, and I would take a bowl of that, and that was just so delicious. I used to smash a bowl of freshly made, the diced boiled eggs, and it's just, it was so good. And unfortunately, my grandmother never. My mom was probably the only one that probably remember some of the stuff she made, but out of all the siblings, they just never thought nothing of it until she was gone. And now, all the things that she made, she took with her. You know what I mean? Because,
Yeah.
but I can still taste my grandmother's pastries. I can still taste my grandmother's food, but there's nobody that knows how to make it.
And that's kind of the lost art of that older style cooking is it truly was. I could cook things that my grandmother used recipes for, right? It was, yeah, it was the base, but it was never a recipe she used, if that makes sense. She always did her own thing to it. I was never able to add that unique spin, and I was always attributed to the fact that I was never, maybe didn't have that much love behind it that she had. Or and it tastes like you can honestly taste when somebody's enjoying cooking versus when somebody has to cook. Like it
Exactly.
comes through. It comes
Yep.
through.
Yep.
Um, I know that one of the most challenging things in the cigar world is coming up with a new blend of cigars. So I'm going to ask you this question. We're going to draw, so I'm going to give you an opportunity to think about it. Like creating a rub, you're starting from absolutely nothing, but you have great ingredients, and then you have to develop. So, after we do this drawing here, I want to kind of dive into what is your process of balancing flavors, because I've tried to do rubs and they're hard. It took me 2 years to develop a rub to where I was like, oh, I don't have to touch it. And I finally wrote it down on a permanent piece of paper. But that was a process and a half. So when we get back here after we do these drawings, I want to kind of dive into your process around balancing flavors and developments of rubs and sauces. So, all right, everybody. So first up here, we have ourselves the signed box of the Red Meat Lovers Porterhouse, which is the 6x60. All right. This is going to go to Amanda Anderson. Amanda Anderson. So let me write this down. RML box. Amanda Anderson. All right. Amanda, please reach out to me and reach out to me on Facebook and send me your information, and we'll get that right out to you. Please get back to me within like 2 or 3 days so that way we can get this sent out to you at the right time. Again, congratulations, Amanda, for the signed box of Red Meat Lover cigars. Next, we have the signed box of the aromatic number 22s, and these are the new aromatic release for the aromatic, because the first version was the number 1. This is the aromatic 22. We're going to be doing the drawing right now, so let's select the winner. We've got Richard Beard. Richard Beard, my brother. All right, the Stillwell Star. Richard, we'll get that right out to you. I already have your information, so we'll get that over to you. Fantastic. Last drawing of the night, everybody, will be the Leaf Ashtray, and that'll be closer to the end of the night. So back to Moe here. Moe, getting back to that question, walk us through a little bit how you kind of develop your recipes for a rub and keep it different from everybody. Everybody, I feel like you go to a store and there's all these colorful labels on the shelf, and you look at the ingredients, and they all have salt, pepper, garlic. But how do you make yours taste different than everybody else's?
Well, first off, quality. I'm not here to knock anybody else's rubs because there's a lot of great rubs out there on the market, and to each his own. But for me, it goes back to my days when I used to go to Pinsley Spices and get my rubs, my spices, and I would make my rubs. And yes, your basic rub, most of your rubs are going to have salt, pepper, and garlic. That's a base. So you can start off with that. You just start off with a certain amount, and then you start adding to that. And what's going to give your rub characteristics is what else you put into that rub. Now, when you see a bottle of rub, and one of the main ingredients, one or two after that, in my personal opinion, is MSG, to me, that's a problem. Now, MSG, you could take it either way. You know what I mean? But I don't want my rubs, having a bunch of MSG in it. And me personally, it tells me that you don't know how to make a rub. Because a good rub takes good ingredients. And when you have a lot of MSG, that means you don't have a lot of good ingredients with that MSG.
When you say good ingredients, really quick, and you're going to the store, are you talking like great value garlic? Is it necessarily as good as McCormick garlic? That
No,
style of ingredient?
Like when I did my rubs, and I'm very adamant about my rubs, very adamant. So when I sat down with my co-packer, they had to bring in 7 or 8 black peppers because every peppercorn has their own flavor.
Sure.
So I know what I'm making. So they would have to get these black peppers in, and I would taste them. Same thing with chili powders. There's a lot of different manufacturers that make bulk chili powders. But where I'm from Iowa, and we have a place called Tone Spices. And I grew up on Tones.
Oh yeah.
Their chili powder I love. So my co-packer that does my sauce down in Kansas City, he doesn't have Tones in bulk. He can't get Tones in bulk for some reason. So he had about 4 or 5 garlic powders. I mean chili powders. And I tasted each one. And the one that I went with was the one that tasted like Tones, but it was really dark in color. I didn't mind that because the flavor was where it was at. So when you leave it up to a co-packer to make your rub for you, that's a problem. So when I stand on my rub, I stand on it's me. That's 100% me. They did not deviate to we could just go and use that. No. If I tell you, like my fish and seafood rub, it has real lemon in it, real dehydrated lemon, not lemon peel, but dehydrated lemon. They had to bring in like 7 lemon peels, like not lemon peel, but lemon powder. And there was one particular one that tasted like the one that I use. And so I went with that. So you have to be real adamant on what you're trying to achieve. If you don't care about that, you just want to put your name, you put some fancy name on your bottle of rub and have a bunch of colors and shit and all that bull crap, that's fine. If the rub is good, it's good. That's fine. But I know with me, if you look at my rubs and turn them around and look, it may not be for everybody. But I've been blessed to have people across this country who really, really love my rubs. There's people out there, friends of mine, that are selling way more than I ever have, but I'm that big black freight train coming down that track, and I might not be going 100 mile an hour, but I'm going, baby, and I keep climbing, and I keep climbing, and I keep climbing, and everywhere I've been, I'm still in them stores. I've never been taken out of a store. And I don't just try to jump on anything. You know what I mean? I every company that came to me, the only company I had to knock on the door with was my own in Hy-Vee in Des Moines, Iowa, where I'm from. They're the only ones that I had to keep. I was persistent. And I kept coming in there with my rubs and everything to the buyer, and then they finally took me in, and then they realized, oh my God! And then now I'm in a ton of Hy-Vees, and Ace Hardware.
I was gonna say Ace Hardware by me.
Yeah, they all came to me. You know what I
You
mean?
have a cult following, and that's what makes the difference with your seasonings. Is you have, like, I know I buy your seasonings, and one of the things that I love about them is they're all very different, but they all taste very fresh and clean. They're not super salty either. Like they have a really good, some of these seasonings, it's all salts where like you
Yeah.
can just a hair overdo it, and it's just a salt cube,
Now,
at that point.
salt is a good thing, and I have salt in my rubs. Don't get me wrong, but it's about balance. And
Correct.
that every recipe I made in my kitchen, every single rub that you see on the shelf, I made that in my kitchen back in the day. Every sauce that I sell, I made it in my kitchen. My trial and error, trial and error. I got a book at home like this, an old book, a leather-bound book that big. It's got all my recipes from when I used to do a lot of cook-offs. I would have my pork injection recipe, or have my pork rub recipe, and had crust. It's got crusty, from all the years, and I have all these little revisions I would make. Like, say, okay, I'm going to Alabama, so let me add a little bit more garlic powder. Let me add this or whatever, and I would put what I added from my main recipe that I made, and then I'd put the date on it. And if it worked out, if it didn't, I just kept it. It was all doc, and I still got those pieces of paper today. Um, and one day I'm gonna get all that and pass it down to my daughter, and my daughters, but it's me being me. And anybody who knows me, competition, I've always, walked my own walk. I mean, I didn't have, I live paycheck to paycheck, so sometimes I just had just enough money just to get gas to go to the cook-off, and that's it. To come back, and that's it. But I love the competition game back in the day. I don't really need to do any really cook-offs anymore. I do Memphis and May, which I love that cook-off, and then I've got another one that I'm going to be doing in New Jersey. I mean in New York, and because I want to do it, but I don't need to prove anything.
No, you don't.
And even then, I just I enjoy cooking. I enjoy cooking, and I enjoy the aspect of going to cook off and see where it goes. You know what I mean? I'm going to go out in Long Island, New York. It's $100,000 cook off, and I'm just going to go and cook the best I can cook. I'm gonna still walk my walk, and then it is what it is. I mean, I don't really cook in New York. I've never. I think I've cooked Buffalo, New York, back in the day a couple times, but everywhere's different. You know what I mean? I can go to New Jersey and get my butt handed to me because it's a different flavor. I remember I did a barbecue battle in D.C., and it was right there in front of the Capitol. It's a huge 100,000 people there. It's a huge cook-off, beautiful cook-off. And I remember I swapped brisket with a team that's from there, and they do really well. And I remember we swapped briskets, and he was put off my brisket. He was like it was put off. And I remember I tasted his brisket at the same time, and I had the same reaction. But he ended up getting first or second in brisket. But because he knows the flavor out there. He knows how a brisket is supposed to be out there. I don't. But
See, it's so crazy how brisket's the same cut of meat everywhere, but there's so many different ways to prepare it. It's all still barbecue. It's just different regions have it different styles. So as explain to every
I'm
oh,
gonna give
go
you.
ahead.
I'm gonna give. This is one of the things I talk
Yeah.
about barbecue. It's hilarious. It's funny. I've had a lot of great times throughout the years. I've had, but this is a perfect example. When I first started competing, I was cooking pretty much in the Midwest. You know what I mean? I was cooking just pretty much in the Midwest. And I remember I wanted to venture out. So I went out to Oregon. Eugene. It was North Oregon. I can't remember the area. It was at the fairgrounds there. And I remember I'm thinking these judges have got to be like where I'm from. I mean, it's KCBS. So I'm thinking it's, and I remember I cooked my brisket. I had a pellet cooker that I took out there. And I remember I cooked this brisket and I thought it was a decent brisket. I really did. I thought, I hit my marks. I was happy with it. I remember at the awards ceremony, I was sitting at a picnic table waiting for the awards. It was at the fairgrounds. And I remember these three judges came and sat behind me at the picnic table. I'm facing the opposite way, and they're behind me at the table. And they start reminiscing and talking about the judging they had that day and the stuff they had. And they start talking about this entry of brisket that was glazed in a barbecue in a blueberry sauce. Let me just tell you that again. This brisket was blueberry. Now, up to that point, I have never, ever heard anything that someone's going to put a blueberry glaze sauce on a brisket.
No.
I just stood up. I didn't turn around, and I just started walking the other way, and I just told myself, I'm effed. And that guy ended up getting first place brisket. Now, I'm going to tell you, because that was a long ride home from northwestern Oregon. I can't tell you how many F-bombs I said between Oregon and Wyoming. I was hot.
Did you learn how to make a blueberry sauce?
Hell to the no. I got a bad recipe, but I've not put that on a brisket. I mean, I'm just used to thinking like, you go down to Texas and try to put a blueberry glaze on brisket, you probably just get shot. Somebody just gonna find you. Who in the hell turned this brisket in? We just gotta smoke this person right now. I mean, I just was not. But that is the difference. You go to different parts of the country, and people do things differently. Barbecue's from the South, and as it works its way throughout the country, people put their own spin on it. But I was still regimented thinking that everybody cooks kind of the same. This is my early years of competition, and it's not the same. It's not the case. It's not the case.
Wow. I still can't get over the fact that blueberry sauce on a brisket. Was it good?
And today, I don't know. I never tasted it, and I don't know because I'll never do it. I mean, that's one of those things. I would never do it. It might have been great, but I'm not doing it. There's certain things that I just won't do. It's just the way I'm cut. You know what I'm saying? I have a traditional way of what I think about brisket. I have brisket what I think what brisket's supposed to be, and I'm going to execute that. Period. If you don't like it, kick rocks. I don't care. This is the way I'm doing it.
Now, are you do have a very traditional viewpoint on anybody that watched your judging and listened to you and how you gave your responses definitely would understand that. Tell everybody really quick what's the difference between Big Moe at a competition and Moe at home cooking? Where do you skirt corners at home versus a competition? Or are you like, I'm at home, I'm still shaping my meat, I'm still doing my trimming, I'm still doing all just because it keeps my skills? Does that make sense?
Yeah, at home I don't do it. I don't do nowhere near. I don't inject. You're competing at a high level with a lot of great cooks, and they're cooking Wagyu brisket, and they got their bells and whistles just like you got your bells and whistles. You ain't coming up in no contest thinking you Billy Badass and you're gonna go get a Walmart select brisket, and you think, oh, I got a 14 spice blend, I'm gonna beat your ass and you cooking that Wagyu. That ain't gonna happen, son. Because I could take a Wagyu with nothing on it. This Wagyu, don't put nothing on it and cook it, and it's gonna taste better than what you doing with a select brisket. I'm gonna tell you, dude, quality means everything, especially when it comes to brisket. It definitely means a lot. It means with all proteins, but you got to know what you're working with, man. You ain't coming. I mean, and I was stubborn. I was a stubborn dude. I didn't back in the day. Nobody gave me brisket. Nobody sponsored. No one did nothing, man. I was just a regular dude like everybody else, cooking, just trying my best. I would take a prime brisket and I would age it in my refrigerator for 30 or 40 days, just like and because that's the best way of me taking this average brisket and making it a little bit better. And I had my rubs and I cooked my brisket and I was happy with it. But I'll tell you what, I was at Memphis and May World Championship, and my buddy Tuffy. I At this point I never cooked a Wagyu brisket in my life, and I remember I walked by Tuffy's tent. He's a good friend of mine, and I went to holler at him, and this lady was sitting there talking with Tuffy, and I walked in. Tuffy waved me in. I came into his area, and he goes, "What's up, Mo?" And I said, "What's up, brother? How you doing?" And blah blah blah. We sitting there, and he looks at me and he goes, "Hey Mo, have you ever cooked a Wagyu brisket?" And I went on a tirade. I said, I ain't paying, blah, 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 I ain't paying, because that's what I truly believe. And I remember Tuffy just looking at me. He just blinking his eyes, just frozen face, just looking at me. And right before I went on my tirade, he introduced me to who this lady was. And she was a lady from Snake River Farms. It wasn't Nanella, it was a lady before her, Kim. Nice lady. And she didn't say nothing. She looked at Tuffy. She goes, "Tuffy, hey, have a good time. Congratulations, good luck. And then she looked at me, Mo, have a good luck. And and she walked out of Tuffy's area. And Tuffy came up to me and looked me right in the face, and he goes, "I just told you who that person was, right?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, she was getting ready to give you free briskets." And I said, "Well, I'm just being honest, man." And so later on that year in Idaho, Meridian, that's where St. Louis Farm is from. I had no idea that they were from there, but I went out and did a cook-off out there because I was try to get to the Jack Daniels, and they only had one sanctioned cook-off in that state, and if you won it, you automatically got into the Jack Daniels. And so I drove my butt all the way out to Idaho. Actually, I did a double hitter. I did one in Utah, then I went up to Meridian for that cook-off, and I remember I pulled up. I had a Horizon offset that I borrowed, and she, lo and behold, she walked up to me. She goes, "Hey Mo, how you doing?" I go, "Hey, how you doing?" She goes, "We are based out of here." I go, "Oh, really? Cool." Blah 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 blah. Now, granted, I had my little brisket that I aged for 35 days. I already know like the back of my hand. And she goes, "I want to give you some briskets to try." And I said, "Okay, sure, man." So she handed me a couple briskets, and I trimmed them up, made an injection like I did my other brisket on my prime, put them back in the cooler, took them out, let them slack out a little bit, get warmed up, seasoned them up, put them on the pit, cooked them side by side. And I remember when they got done, I had them wrapped in butcher paper, I had them in the cooler, or the Cambro, and then I took them out, and I remember I set both of them side by side on my table. And I remember I started slicing that Wagyu brisket first. This is my first Wagyu brisket I've ever cooked. And I remember slicing it. And I was already blown away how I was slicing it. Oh, shit. I grabbed that brisket, man, and I bit half of that slice and put it in my mouth, chewed it. My eyeballs rolling back of my head. And I said, "You are so stupid." I'm playing checkers, and these people are playing chess. And that cook-off, I end up winning the cook-off. I got first place brisket. I won the cook-off, and it got me into the Jack Daniels. And ever since then, after that, that's all I cook for competition is Wagyu.
Now tell everyone real quick, and I've got two questions for you. What's the difference in cost between a prime packer and a Wagyu packer?
It all
Ballpark.
depends on the ballpark. Well, briskets went up crazy. They used to be not that bad, but now they're, I would say, like a 18-pound prime. If you get it at Costco or Sam's, that's going to be about $70, $80, depending on where you're at. And a Wagyu of the same would be about $150 or $180 for that same size brisket. But
so
I'm gonna tell
about
you,
twice the cost.
But it's worth every bit of it. I don't give a damn what you're saying. But if you're cooking for your family and friends' backyard, you don't really care. Because I cook a lot of prime. I don't cook Wagyu all the time. But for competition, I'm cooking Wagyu.
Well, yeah, you want the best of the best for competition. So I got a question here from Steve. He asks, crutch or no crutch for baby backs. He uses apple juice.
I don't do that. People know me. I don't. I never liked. I mean, back when I first started, I did, and I hated my ribs swimming in foil. Yeah, a lot of guys do it, and they still do to this day, and it's a decent rib. Don't get me wrong, but my process of how I cook my ribs is nothing like that. I don't wrap my ribs in foil. I don't put brown sugar and butter and all that stuff, which that Pitmasters made that really popular. A lot of people do it. To this day, people do it. I just don't do that. So what I do is I start my rib out. I cook my rib, and when my rib gets to about 170 degrees, I'll take some butter and I'll melt some butter, and then I'll take peach butcher paper by itself, and if I got a pit that I need to stop the smoke process on, especially like on an offset, I'll take that slab of ribs and I put it on the butcher paper, and then I take my silicone brush and I just paint the top of that top of that rib with melted good high quality butter, like Kerrygold or something. Wrap it up tight, and then I put it back on the pit. And then once that rib gets to 200, 202, about 200, depends, 203, depends on the pit. Once it got that feel. But once I take my thermometer and I press it through the butcher paper, in between the meat, between the bones, and I can tell the way it feels. And I'm like, okay, these ribs are bunning. And I can open it up. And I don't lose my bark. It's beautiful because the thing about butcher paper, it breathes. That's the same thing like why I do with brisket, because butcher paper acts like foil, but it doesn't steam the meat. And you keep the color, and it allows the meat to get done quicker if you didn't wrap it at all. So that's how I do my brisket. And then I add my sauce at the end. Like right when the rib is done, I'll have some warmed up sauce, and then I'll paint my rack with the sauce, and I'll set the sauce for a few minutes, and then that's it. And then it's coming off, like say ribs are due at 12:30, or coming off at 12:15, depending on how far I am from turn in, 12:20, slice them up, put them in a box real nice, and then I run them up to the judges. But that's how I do my bread. Now I know good friends of mine, that still do the rib, the brown sugar, the butter, the whatever, and that's fine. I just don't like my ribs steaming, because just steaming in that solution. I mean, and it's that's what a lot of people do. I mean, and they've won a lot of money like that, and that's fine. But I just, like I said again, I walk my walk.
Oh, for sure. And you kind of led into the next question here. We talked a little bit about this pre-show, but Cody asks, what is the best way to get good bark on brisket?
Have a pit that has good airflow. So
Okay.
imagine all a brisket is water. We're water as human beings. So when you get a pit that has good flow, like say like an M&M offset pit or a good quality pit, that air movement that's running across that pit out and heading them out the exhaust stack, that's what creates that beautiful bark. It's air movement. That's why a pellet grill are great and they do a good job, but they have combustion and they have some sort of air movement that's running through the pit, but it's not like a well-designed offset. Offset, man, I mean, that air is turbocharged. Like I said, you can open
It's
up the
one end to the other.
and you can see that flame trying to work its way into the chamber. It's leaning towards the chamber. That's when you know you got a good pit. That's when you know when you got a good pit, man. And that air movement is what's creating that crush. It's just like having a wound on your arm. That air and your body fighting it, but that air going across, just like you take a piece of Band-Aid off that wound, it's all wet, nasty, and then you just walk around for a couple hours, it'll start crusting up on you. It's because of the air movement.
Now, you had also said the best way to keep that bark, though, and you learned this because you used to be all about tinfoil, but you tell the story you told pre-show about the time you learned about butcher paper, because you were apprehensive to it.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, competition starting out, I mean, everybody wrapped in foil. I didn't know anybody wrapped in butcher paper because I wasn't from Texas. I was from Iowa, and everybody in Iowa wrapped it. I mean, all the big things, they're all wrapped in foil. But when I went down and started going in Texas, I would go to these barbecue restaurants and eat. And like I'm seeing them yanking these beautiful briskets that are wrapped in butcher paper, and the whole butcher paper is saturated with beef fat. I mean, just completely saturated. And they unwrap this brisket out on the cutting board, and you got this beautiful coal black brisket that's like jelly. And I was blown away by that. And they start slicing this brisket, and I would get a couple slices on my plate, and I would eat it, and I was just blown away at such the flavor, how it complements. That's why I truly believe salt, pepper, garlic, that type of rub, for me personally, is the best for brisket. Now
No.
you go to Kansas City, they ain't doing that. They got chili powder, they got garlic, and it's good. Don't get me wrong, but when you could take simple ingredients like that and make a great brisket, and it's so freaking delicious. But like me, I have a pepper palate. I like pepper. Now, a lot of people may not like pepper. It may be too. You get a lot of people that are not from Texas, or they go past these restaurants and they're like, I don't get it. I understand why people like I can't stand Texas brisket. Or it's because that's not what they're used to, and they don't. You know what I mean? They're used to briskets cooked on cherry, or or it's got a bunch of sauce on it, and to each his own. But seeing that changed my game. I came home, and at the time, I was sponsored by Reynolds Wrap, so they gave me yeah, yeah. I had a ton of Reynolds Wrap, so I was like, well, how am I gonna? I need to use this foil up. So what I did was, I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take 2 sheets of foil. I take my brisket once I get to about 170 degrees. Once I get the smoke that I want and the color that I want, I'll take that brisket and I'll put it on that piece of foil. And then I'll take a slice of peach butcher paper, and I'll set it on top of that, and I crimp it all the way around tight against that. So then the top of it's got butcher paper, so it looks like a hot pocket. And what's great about that is that the moisture is still able to pass through the butcher paper on the top, and you don't lose the bark. And second, you still have all the juices still inside that brisket, because when you unwrap a brisket the way I do it, there might be 1 or 2 tablespoons of juice in the bottom of that foil. The rest is still in the brisket. Now you wrap a brisket completely in foil and see what happens. You have a pond of au jus coming out of that brisket, juices that you can't get back in that brisket. It's sitting at the bottom of the foil. So you've actually took away from that brisket.
So let me ask you this. So like I've cooked with paper too, and I've always wondered this. Paper just saturates and sits on top of it. And you're 100% right. Paper keeps that bark better. But to me, it's always kind of like interesting to me how that even happens, because that paper is soaked. That paper is so saturated, you would think it would kind of
It's still
sagify that bark.
No, it's still porous. No matter if it's still it's paper. It's still breeze. It's still porous. No matter if it's saturated with oil, it's still porous.
So even the little bit being held against it is not necessarily hurting that bark. It's the pool and the steam that hurts the bark.
It's pulling all that juices. You're forcing the juices out of that brisket, and then it hits the top of that foil, comes back down on top of that brisket, makes that whole bark mushy. You've ruined that brisket, in my opinion. I mean, as far as competition or cooking at home, I've learned. I mean, like I said, I used to do that back in the day, and I changed up real quick when I started going to Texas.
Now, do you like pepper in a cigar, or do you like a spicy cigar too? Are you a retrohaler? Do you blow through your nose?
No, I don't.
Have you ever?
Blown through my nose? No, I always blew through my nose.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Mo, you've got to learn to retrohale. You have 39.
Wait, why the hell I want to need to do that?
Because you have. I'm not saying it's gonna. You have 39 olfactory glands in your nose, and the same way you eat first with your smelling, encompassing your nose in a cigar is where you actually pick out a lot of the nuances of the spices and the difference between the red pepper and the black pepper, and even some vanillas and stuff like that through the nose, and it really opens up that cigar immensely. I would absolutely recommend. It's hard to learn, for some, but the easiest way is just to blow just a little bit out and then just force it through your nose. It's going to hurt the first time, but then as you do it, you start to pick up a lot of nuances within that cigar where maybe your palate wouldn't pick it up.
Well, I'm gonna tell you something, brother. I can pick it up in my mouth.
Hey, and you know what? I know people that don't retro.
I ain't never.
I'm a
I
big retro hailer.
man,
I
if
love
I
blowing
hold
it through
on,
my nose.
if I did that right now, I'd gas out, fucking pass out.
Oh no, because you don't inhale it; you just blow it
I
through.
don't. I don't know, man. I
I'm
don't know.
telling you, I'm telling you, do yourself a favor and try learning how to do it, just to see if anything like that pepper blows through on the nose. If you're tasting it on the mouth and the nose, it just blooms. But, however, you like what you like and you do what you do, and that's really all that matters. And, you know, I've got Steve saying here, yes, Steve, smoke however you want. I'm just always encouraging people in a different style. That's all.
That's
Um,
cool.
and yeah, but what what is a piece of meat that you would love to try to cook but have never had an opportunity? Like it could be like anything. Like I would love to shark, or I would love to try to do something. Like what's a piece of meat you felt would be fun?
Ostrich.
Ostrich. Okay. Have you had an ostrich egg?
Nope.
Ostrich eggs are good. They're huge. It's like 2 dozen eggs in one. They're massive, but
Yeah,
they're good.
I like to cook ostrich. Try it out.
Now, is that something that you would try to smoke, or is that like ostrich leg or an ostrich wing?
I'd have to look at the texture, and I have to look. I mean, I have to look at. It would seem that they would be really lean in my. I don't think they have. Just like when I go to Australia, back in the day when I used to go do meat stock, we'd go out for a week into the bush, which would be like the country here, but they call it the bush over there. And we go hunting, and we'd make a big bonfire, and a lot of my Australian buddies, and we would hunt for the week and eat whatever we cook, whatever we hunt, we hook. So we go shoot some fallow deer. My first time shooting, killing kangaroo, eating kangaroo. Uh, that's a very lean animal. Like when you take the fur off of a kangaroo, they're jacked. I mean, you look at their chest.
Oh, they're
First of
boxers.
all, and the best thing on that kangaroo, because really they process them as dog food, but you can eat them.
Oh,
Best thing is the tail. I'm gonna tell you, man. We made stew on a big black cauldron sitting on the fire that they cooking all day long. They have Australians have great wine like New Zealand, unbelievable wine. So we had potatoes, carrots, onion, all these cool vegetables like a stew, and we'd kill a kangaroo. My homeboy Rob Galena, expert marksman, and we'd go and this boy would skin it, take the tail off, and lop the leg off like oxtail, and put all that kangaroo tail in that, man. I mean, and you let it cook all day long. All the bones, all the cartilage, you let cook all that flavor, and then we would come back if the water was a little low, we'd add more wine. Man, I'm gonna tell you something. I sat down in that chair in front of that bonfire, and that I've had a lot of oxtail in my day, and that right there was fire. It was delicious.
what has been one of your best hunts that you've been on? Where either you pulled a record, a personal record, or it was just that much fun?
I've been on some cool hunts. Australia was cool when I shot that fallow over there, but I mean New Zealand, excuse me. I would say my recent trip to Texas. I went down to Sanderson, Texas, um, and buddy of mine. I'm getting ready to go out there to Midland for the basic burnout, which is a big cook-off, and it's oil field workers versus oil field workers. It's pretty cool, and I'm coming there to, cook a VIP thing and then just hang out and shake hands and meet people. But the guy that puts that on, they own 14,000 acres, low fence. And so they got all kinds of animals on there, and I've always wanted a muley to add to my wall. And on the last day of my hunt, the last day, he took me up highest point in this 14,000 acres. It's like a mound, and it's where the wells up there pump runs water, and they have all these lines running out to all these troughs all over the property that feed, put water in these troughs for these animals. And I remember my guide, cool dude, and he got his binoculars out, and he seen this big old muley walking towards this trough, and he was probably 270 yards out. Now, I believe in overkill when it comes to hunting. I don't care. I'm built for comfort, not speed. So I ain't trying to track shit for days. And so I use big caliber. Now, granted, I've got a lot of 6.5 Creedmoors, I got all kinds of guns, but I had a 338 in the pool because they do have elk on the property, and I brought it for the elk, but we didn't see any elk. So I shot this muley, which is overkill, but got the job done.
Hey, overkill just depends if you got no meat left, right? Then is that like if you go prairie dog hunting with a 7 mil mag or a 30-06, that's overkill,
Yes,
or squirrel hunting. But if big game like that, I mean, it can handle that.
And it was a pretty deer too, because he was about 6 years old. He was an old mule. His whole face was all white. His ears were white, and he had like a little brown afro. And his rack came out, and he had whitetail in him. So where a muley comes out and they go straight up and it's like 2x2.
Sure.
This rack came out and it looked like a whitetail. It was so cool, man. And he's being mounted. I shot a couple javelinas, big javelinas.
Mm-hmm.
One of them mounted, and then I got a muley, and then I got a little small 10-point whitetail that's getting mounted in Midland. And so when I come back later on in the year, they'll be ready to go.
So at your house, do you have like a hunting room where you have your mounts?
No,
or are they just through the house?
Well, I lost my wife about a year and a half ago, and I never had anything up on the wall because just to keep the peace, I mean, my wife she probably wouldn't have mind if I, put one or two up there. But when she passed, I said, you know what, I'm gonna start doing what I want to do, and that's what I do. So my girls have been rolling their eyes. I come home and they're like, Dad. And I'm like, and I said, oh no, we just starting here, bro. I got 3 more coming this like, I mean, so the dining rooms got mounts, the living rooms got mounts, and then I when they come, the new ones come in, I'll be putting them up. Now I'm building a property down 4 acres. I bought 4 acres of timber down in Cantone, which is just north of Pensacola, and I'm gonna build a little barnuminium down there, just a little 1,400 square foot home, and that's where I'm gonna take all my mounts and hang them on the wall down there when I get that done.
So is that going to be Moe's semi-retirement home, or are you going to turn into a snowbird?
That's where it's going to be eventually where I'm going to be. And I'm going to keep my house up in Iowa, so my girls always got a place to lay their head. But I love the timber. I got to get a well put in. I got to get septic put in. I got to get power ran to it. I'm leaving next week to go down there to start that process and get that going. But I want to have this thing done by the end of the year. But that's my dream. My dream, I have my side-by-side down there. I got, I just want to be able to sit on my porch and there's nobody.
And you'll be in cigar country too.
I know.
So like that's the best of all your worlds. So here closing the show up, everybody. We got a few more minutes here. Gonna go ahead and have the last giveaway of the night, which is a signed box for the Leaf ashtray. And all you got to do is type in, very simple, thanks Moe and Steve. Thanks Moe and Steve. That's it. Spell and, don't use an ampersand. Don't be lazy about it. Type it out. Thanks Moe and Steve, and we'll let everybody get their in here, and we'll go from there. So hang on. Don't do anything yet. All right, go ahead and type it in. Thanks, Mo and Steve. Is the drawing, and we'll let everybody do that here. So, Mo, if you were ever approached by a cigar company and said, "Hey, love the opportunity to work with you and maybe come out with something for you," would that ever be something that you would consider?
Yeah, as long as it meets what I want as far as a cigar. I'm
How
not putting my
much how much would you want to be involved in that process of blending and tasting, or would you just
yeah.
kind of say, "Send me what you got"?
No, I would want to taste it. I know what I like, and I would have to taste the cigars to see what I like. I actually like these ones right here, the Red Meat Lovers. I really like that. That's a nice cigar, man.
It's a very good cigar. Hey, Steve, we might have a new opportunity. Maybe you could team up with Mo and do like an exclusive for his events.
Yeah, put my
That'd be
yeah
fun.
put my face. You put my face on the wrapper. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
That's cool.
that'd be fun, Steve. Maybe we can make that happen. I know, like I said, Mo, this has been, I can't believe it's been 2 hours already. This has been a lot of fun, man. I still can't believe I get to say that I've had you on the show. And I
Yeah,
told you next time I come through Des Moines, I drive through when I go to Illinois. I'm stopping by,
yeah,
and we're gonna have a cigar, and I'm gonna eat anything that you're willing to give me. I don't even You don't even tell me what it is. Just throw it on a plate with a fork. And my granny and granddad always raised me. You try everything 3 times before you make an opinion. The first time is the shock and awe. The second time confirms the first time, and the third time confirms it all.
that's
So
right.
I always tell everybody I'll try anything and everything at least 3 times
Right on.
before I make a decision on that. So it really means a lot that you came on. Throwing some lightning round questions at you here before we do the drawing. What is your favorite cut of a cigar? Are you straight cut, V cut? Are you a thumb picker, bite? What do you do?
V.
V cut? What is your favorite size cigar?
I think Toro
Are you box press or cylinder?
box press.
What is your favorite pairing,
Oh, my
drink
favorite parent,
wise?
Weller.
Weller, okay, all right. Bourbon guy, nice, okay. And if you were able to cook food for any historical person, please don't say Jesus or God. Those are cop outs, in my opinion, but any historical person, non family member, who would it be and what would you cook?
That's a good question, dude. There's a lot of people that I have a lot of respect for. I tell you, I can't really put a name on it right now, but what I can say is that I'm a prior Navy guy, and this September Labor Day weekend, I served on the U.S. Missouri during Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and I served on that ship, which is a historic battleship, which I love, and had the honor to be able to serve on that ship. And it's a museum now in Hawaii, and they've asked me to come out to do the ending of World War II ceremony. Big thing they're doing out there in Pearl Harbor, in Hawaii, on the Missouri, and I get to cook for 500 former USS
Wow.
Missouri, which that to me is hashtag full circle.
For
I was a
sure.
and stuff like that. Like I go cook for the military. Like I'm going to go to Okinawa and cook for 2,000 Marines here this summer. Uh, that to me is my favorite thing is cooking for military. I go to Air Force, cook for Air Force bases. I cook for Army, not Army, but Marines, Navy. That is my way of giving back. And I've done cooks for private people, but cooking for the military and having those folks. I bring my daughter over, my buddy. I bring my buddy Bobby over, and it's just so gratifying to me. I feel so blessed and thankful to be in this country, to be
Yeah.
born and raised, the greatest country in the world. I don't care what anybody says. America is best. and to be able to go and feed these servicemen and women that are putting their life on the line for everybody, for their country, for themselves, for their families, and for them to sit there and enjoy my brisket, and you could see that they haven't had that, nothing like that in a long time, or since they've been back home, or whatever. That to me is the most gratifying, to be honest.
Well, that sounds awesome, and again, Steve just pointed. Steve also was in the Navy, so he's like he's loving you even more and more now. Like following you, know about you now. You guys have the simpatico. I'm telling you, Steve, we've got to do a Moe Cason cigar. Whether it's a one-off release, it's got to be done. It makes sense. He's loving Dunbarton, and Carrie says here we could do a venison cigar and call it the Moto.
Oh. He cracks me up, man. I love that.
And yeah, Steve does a lot of the military events as well. So here, let's go ahead and do this giveaway for I am not opening it. And for those of you that have not ever seen one of these open, Mo had the experience of opening one because I sent him it. If you open it, there's no getting it back in this box exactly the way it was. So I don't open it beyond just what you see here. So it is a signed box of the leaf ashtray. I don't know the color, what it is, or anything in it. But if you get it, you can let us all know. So this will go to, let's see here, final drawing of the night. We've got Cody Carroll. Cody Carroll with the ashtray. All right, brother. Fantastic. Cody won a bundle of Micallef Cigars a couple months back, and now he wins an ashtray. Fantastic. Awesome, Cody. I'll make sure to get that up to you. I don't need your information. Don't worry about it. So, well, Mo, this has been an absolute honor of mine to have you on, man. And I just can't say it enough to you. You know, the fact that you jumped at coming on here and were just as excited as I was to have you on. Really, it made me feel great. And I hope you've had a really fun night tonight. I hope this was something a little bit different than what you're used to on shows. And man, I'm serious. I'm calling you. We're brothers now. So I've called you like a dozen times before this show. And when I come through Des Moines, I'm gonna hit you up, and we're gonna get together and have a cigar in person. And I don't know if you go to cigar events or have ever done a cigar event, but there is the best cigar event to go to is what's called the Great Smoke in the Great Smoke, and it's in Boynton Beach, well, West Palm Beach, Florida. I would love to make sure we keep in contact, give you some of that information. Would love to have you down at that event. Whether you're there for a reason or you're down there just to hang out, it is an absolutely incredible time, and it's not probably it is the best cigar show period that you will go to. It's huge indoor. Everybody's smoking. There's like 1,600, 2,000 people there. It's absolutely just so much fun. Um, where are you going to be at within the next maybe couple of months, where if people wanted to catch up with you, run into you, meet you, that they have that opportunity?
Well, I'm going to be heading to Atlanta in a couple of weeks I got a barbecue class. I'm teaching down there, me and my buddy Bob. And then from there, I'm going to be heading to Midland, Texas to go participate in the Basin Burnout. And then I fly home, and then I have my truck and trailer, my truck and my pit all hooked up. And then I'm starting working my way out to Groton, Connecticut. So I'm going to be cooking the commissioning event for the USS Iowa Ballistic Sub, which is commissioned. It'll be the end of the first week of April, and I'm cooking for 540 people, and it's a really big event. I mean, there'll be contractors there'll be senators, congressmen, former and past governors, a lot of Iowa dignitaries are going to be there, and to be asked to do this is awesome. You know what I mean? For me to be able to cook for the commissioning of the Virginia class, sub, ballistic sub, and the USS Iowa. And what's so cool about this sub, to give you a little thing about it, is they really went all in on Iowa. So on the mess decks where the crew eats, all the tables have the universities in Iowa, like Iowa State, UNI, Drake. So that's cool. And then they have Iowa license plates that are going to be I think, on the wall, and it'll tell what area they're at. You know what I mean? So they are really going all out like that. And then a lot of our Iowa State Fair board, which we have the number one fair in the country, Iowa State Fair, and they're coming out. And so then when they do the commissioning event and then they open it up to the public, the whole pier is going to be mocked up like the Iowa State Fair. So you'll be able to get corn dogs, deep fried Twinkies, things of that nature, pork chops on a stick. So they're really going all out. And then I feel honored as an Iowan to be able to go out and cook for the commissioning event, my barbecue for the USS Iowa commissioning event.
But then, dude, you're living your best life right now, man.
Oh, yeah.
Like you really truly are. You're living your life in a way that gives back for all the garbage you had to go through, and just, I say garbage of just life. And then for you to be discovered the way you were, it kind of fell into your lap in all the right ways. And I say fell into your lap at being in the right place at the right time, not because you certainly didn't fucking deserve it, because you absolutely did, but right place at the right time. And then it blossomed to 15 years later, you're world renowned grand champion, reserve grand champions. You're known all over. You've been to dozens and dozens of countries. You talked about how you get a tattoo from each country. You're running out of skin space. I fear that for you. This man didn't flinch. I called him and he goes, "Yeah, I'm just getting a tattoo." And he couldn't tell. I would be screaming to not pick up the phone. So he didn't even phase him. So again, from the bottom of my heart, man, you have a home here. I'd love to have you back on
Sure.
and dive a little bit more into it. And we're gonna make this Modo happen, damn it. And the Modo needs to be a good Connecticut. The Modo needs to be Connecticut, and then we need to have like the Mo Buck come out where it's a nice, rich cigar. So don't worry, I'm gonna make this happen. I'm gonna put you in contact with Steve. I'm gonna hound him. And either way, I know I'm very grateful, and I know Steve thought it was a lot of fun to be able to have you on the show and you to enjoy his cigar and wear the damn. I love that hat. It's just it truly is the best hat for a bald man. Absolutely. So again, here in closing, Mo, thank you so much for coming on, brother. Really, really was a great night. One of my favorite shows I've done. Don't tell anybody else that. But so until we see you all again, check out Mo's website, which is
Moe Cason, BBQ.com.
and you can find all of his rubs there. If you have an Ace Hardware close by, I tell you what, just slide the card, walk down the cart, and go like this on all of them. All right, just one of everything. You're gonna love them. I absolutely promise you. And you'll graciously go back for return purchases. I promise you. But until we see you again, smoke what you like, smoke as often as you can, and have a great